Hello, and welcome to the inaugural show of Her Voice. My name is Jules Dunham Howie, and I have the privilege of hosting this show. And Her Voice is an opportunity for an in-depth profile of women that are currently serving or seeking to serve in the political office. And it allows an opportunity for us to just get a chance to know who these women are, what do they stand for, and how are they going to make a difference in the communities and constituencies' lives that they serve. So I thank you for joining us, and I'm really excited because for this inaugural show, I would want no one other than the guest that I have this morning. I am pleased to be with Senator Barbara A. Robinson. She serves in the 40th District of Baltimore City, and she has a resume that is pages, is voluminous, y'all, because she has wisdom and she has served. But I'm not going to do justice. So here's my first question for you, Senator, this morning. Walk us through your resume.
Oh, wow. That's a big thing. And when people ask me about things, I said I've been around since water, but I haven't been stagnant. I'm from Alabama, and I came to Baltimore to go to Morgan, and it took 18 years for me to get my bachelor's degree because of living in the projects, being on welfare, being in the streets, being not feeling so well about myself, because when you come from a life of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, watch my mother being beaten almost every weekend. And when I say beaten, I don't mean slap around. I mean stabbed with an ice pick and cut with a knife, and dealing with my own dealing with my own demons, if you will, of trying to cope with the abuse. And nobody would believe me, when I'm saying that I'm being abused. So I had to see a psychiatrist when I was in the 9th grade, because I started these fainting spells, and then found out because I was trying to deal with the abuse, not only from my stepfather, but they used to call me that old bastard child, old drunk Louise's daughter, because my mother was an alcoholic. Her name was Louise. So getting away from Alabama, and if it were not for two teachers that saw something in me when I graduated from high school in Columbus, Georgia, that actually helped me to get to Baltimore. And that's a whole different story in itself. If you read my first book, And Still I Cry, it will tell you how I got to Baltimore. And then getting caught up in the streets here in Baltimore and projects and all of those other things that say that you can't be a success. And then going to the court system and working in there. I was the first woman and the first African American to hold positions of deputy administrator of the Supreme Bench and of the Circuit Court. And then leaving there and starting a business with an unemployment check that turned into a multi-million-dollar corporation with 162 people on my payroll. And then moving from that, looking at, I didn't see anybody in Annapolis who represented me better than I could represent me. And when I say me, I mean women of color in business. So I jumped in the race to run for the House of Delegates. And there were 9 people running. I was the most inexperienced. But I think everything that I've ever done is when somebody said I couldn't do it. So I took that challenge and I won, and I've been fighting for women rights for so long. I've been fighting for rights of small business, women-owned business, for so long. It's become second nature to me now, because that's who will make America great, or keep America great. Small businesses, because we reach back and we help other people to either start their business or to get jobs, to especially individuals who have not had any work before. And when I say that, I mean the work that I've done helping people on welfare, get off of welfare. And you helped me for so many years. We trained over 2,000 people and hired over 850 people and helped 75 start businesses. And I'm going back some 30 years or so when you started putting together those statistics.
Well, it's been a wonderful time. I've had, as you can hear, I've had an opportunity to work with the senator in the past, and I just know the integrity that she brings to anything that she does. And, in what she shared, and I could not have done justice with that introduction, but what she shared and what I want to make sure you picked up and gleaned is that she has served for 10 years in the legislature. So she served 2 terms as a delegate, and then she was chosen to take over the Senate seat, and she's been served out a 2-year term in the Senate seat. So 10 years she's been there, and now she's going up for re-election as the senator of the 40th district. And I want you to go back a little bit and just tell us what you said. You didn't know anything about anything when you did that first race, but what interested you in politics?
The fact that I was not represented. I didn't think that I was represented. When I say women in business, African American women in business. I had been in business for several years, and providing community-based residential care to people with developmental disabilities. And I kept seeing where we were not getting contracts that we actually deserved. And if we did get contracts, when I said we, I mean women, women of color, if we were getting contracts, they were paper clips or $25,000. And if we got a contract for $100,000, we were rah. That's no money. When others are getting 5 million, 20 million, 30 million. But when we look at the contracts and when we look at the RFPs, sometimes we look at them and we get overwhelmed with what's requested of us instead of looking at it like a pie. This is my slice of the pie, and who do I know that I can get that can take the other slices and come together as a joint venture and go after contracts in that manner. Well, I wanted a platform where I would be able to tell women just that. Don't sell yourself short. Go after your dream. But then I wanted to be able to affect change in Annapolis because there were so many regulations that really were not necessary or really should be in place. But it didn't seem that anybody was actually understanding what it was that women needed or what it was that small businesses needed. And I've made a difference. I mean, I like the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. I changed that name because people looking at that, you think that's where you go to get your civic issues resolved, but didn't realize that it was business. You would go there for all your small business reserve programs or whatever. Yeah. And so I changed that name to small minority and women business affairs. My bill last year changed that name. There is no regulations for black African American or black franchisees in Maryland. And I went to went to Washington and met with Maxine Waters and Elijah Cummings to find out that there really aren't any great regulations nationally, for black franchisees. So I formed a study group to look at the challenges and opportunities for African American businesses in Maryland. And from that came a slew of legislation that I put in to not only look at black franchisees, but what's the training that women need or that small businesses need? Access to capital.
Yes.
Are we actually getting 29% of businesses contract 29% contract from primes, and how can subcontractors become prime contractors, and how do we get local preferences, for small business? So just things like that I wanted to be part of.
Well, you've been part of it. You've been championing the way. And so it brings me to my next question, which is, looking back over this 10-year span, what would you say has been the most important accomplishment that you've been able to achieve in the legislature?
I think one of the most important accomplishments, and it took 4 years to get it through, is to separate 501c3 nonprofits from being counted as for-profits. And when I say that, when the governor talked about how much money he was putting into minority businesses, he was counting nonprofits. And a nonprofit cannot be counted as a for-profit, totally different. And I don't have anything against either one, because during my time as a businesswoman, I've operated 501c3 nonprofits, for-profits, LLC, so I understand all of that. But what that did, it freed up over $800 million to go to small businesses. Because that was saying that when you talk about minority businesses, I'm not including nonprofits, I'm including minority businesses. There's money out there for small businesses, there's money out there for contracts out there for 501c3 nonprofits. I'm saying stay in your lane. That was one of the great accomplishments. And another one was putting money in to keep the libraries open in Baltimore longer. Because a lot of times, young people and older people, the only access you have to computers were at the libraries. And if they closed at a certain time, especially in areas of concentrated poverty, that you really don't get to do homework, and I grew up in Alabama where, in Alabama and Georgia, where we didn't have access to libraries. So I knew the need and the importance. So being able to provide a place for people to actually go and to do research and to learn and to find out how you start a business. So those were two of the ones that I was really, really proud of.
Well, we're dealing with a situation now where there are a lot of millennials that are running for office, and they really don't have an appreciation for seniority. And you now have served for 10 years, and so the real question is, what change do you want to make that you haven't already made that needs to happen, and that's why you run? That's what I don't understand.
You know, there are several pieces of legislation that I put in that I want to see completed. For an example, I have a bill in to extend the sunset of the bill that I was talking about, the challenges of and opportunities for minority businesses in Maryland. So I want to see that to fruition. So I have some legislation that's coming at that, but it won't be done until next year because we need to go back and put in, meet with some other people to extend that. Another thing that I really want to see, I'm a great proponent of education. And I have a bill in to teach financial literacy and entrepreneurship in high school, that from grades 10 through 12. Doesn't look like that's going to pass this year, but I want to work on that until it does pass. Another bill to reduce the recidivism rate, and that's to teach entrepreneurship and financial literacy in prison for inmates who are within a year of being released. I want to see that completed. I have several bills in for seniors, you know, to actually look at the safety of seniors as they live in their residential facilities. There's a task force that I have to look at that. So there are pieces of legislation that will not be completed in 2018. And I want to be here in 2019 to see that it is completed. And when you talk about millennials, you know, it's time for young people. And I like to see young people get in the race. However, you have to first learn. It disturbs me when someone wants to learn, wants to be elected because of your own aggrandizement, for your own power, for your own recognition, for your own egotistical endeavors. But when you learn from people, like I sat on the shoulders of Hattie Harrison in order to learn what did I need to know in order to be an effective legislator. That first year I passed no bills at all because I didn't know what I was doing. I was sitting with Hattie and Ruth Kirk. And I learned from people like that, and Clarence Blount and Howard Rollins, Pete Rollins. So in order to be an effective leader, you need to learn. An effective leader is not to tell me what you're going to do. It's to show me what you've already done. So, I would like to see young people take the helm, but I think that they need to first learn what it is that they need to do to be effective leaders at the helm.
So what do you say to the people that say Barbara Robinson is too old and she's done a great work, but it's time for her to step aside? Why should we consider you for this position?
Well, with age comes experience and wisdom. And, it bothers me when someone tries to define my limitations. When someone tries to define my limitations. I should be the judge of when it's time for me to leave my post. And I don't see where anyone who has not walked in my shoes can tell me how my shoes feel. And I also have a saying that growing old is nothing more than a bad habit that a busy woman has no time to form.
I
I don't have time to grow old. I have become seasoned. And, you know, and people that say that, if they haven't accomplished as much as I have done as much as I have, I've been places where you only read about. You know, I've seen things that you dream about. And the fact that I am the age that I am now, it means absolutely nothing. Because age is only a number. So it bothers me when people talk about dress size, or how tall you are, how old you are, you know, the color of your skin, all of those exclusionary things that really don't mean anything at all. So I just pass that off and chuckle and say, what else do you have? Because I decide when it's time, you know.
So, what is a mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from it?
The mistake that I made was not getting into business or not writing my book 10 years ago. And I say that mistake, but when I say that, my daughter tells me that's not a mistake, because 10 years ago you would not have known what you know now. You would not be the person that you are now. And the mistake that I also made was not coming out years ago and talking about, this was before the Me Too movement came. You know, I had lived with pain for so long that when my first book came out, I didn't want the publisher to put my picture there, because I was still dealing as a victim rather than an overcomer, or rather than a survivor. So being able to say now where I was then, and then to look at all of those years that I dealt with the pain, because it took almost 20 years to write that first book because of the pain of reliving the hurt. And so when I see young women now, and I'm able to embrace them and say, don't let anybody define your limitations, and never sell yourself short. Because where you are now is where you need to be. And the fact that you are where you are now means that that's where God meant for you to be. You know, and so we all have assignments. And carry out your assignment without anybody telling you that this is not what you're supposed to do. You decide what you're supposed to do.
Wonderful. And my last question. Why should someone vote for Barbara A. Robinson? And why do you think you're the most qualified candidate to be the senator of the 40th District?
I think I'm the most qualified candidate because I'm the most experienced. And not only experienced in politics, but experience in the community. And everything does not happen in Annapolis. If you look at the things that I have done and continue to do in the community, I put 1,000 Women of Worth Summit and brought women together to talk about women issues. I've had town hall meetings all across the district, the 40th District, to listen to what are the things that are needed in the community. Every bill that I've ever put in, it's somebody in the community telling me that this is what we need, this is what I need. The opiate crisis, looking at how that not just affect young people, but look at how that's affecting our seniors when they are not knowing, unwittingly taking different types of medicine and not realizing how they actually conflict with each other. Going into the community, addressing things such as a parking lot need to be installed, or street lights need to be put in or taken out. Or, I don't look at things and say this is just in the 40th district, or this is a federal issue, or this is a local issue. I look at things and say that this is a people issue. And being able to deal with relationships. I've established relationships over the years that I've been in business, over the years that I've been an elected official. I can go to someone in appropriation. I sat on the appropriation committee for 10 years. I can go to the appropriations committee and say, I need your help in order to get this bill through. Being able to bring in over $300,000 to help a baseball field being put in so that young people will have a place to go in their neighborhood, or helping bring in $1 million, more than $1 million for a skate park, or bringing in other over $250,000 for a community center that helps children after school. So things like that. So it's not just Annapolis. It's making my community better. Or putting in a library in a community, in a district that's not even mine. Sending in thousands of books to a library and have that library named after me in the Langston Hughes Library. And donating computers to schools. We sent computers in to 3 different schools. Or buying renting out a movie theater, and taking children who were not able to go to see the Black Panther, taking them to see, but that's making their lives a little better. So just doing things in the community that that you don't even think about. Trying to make a difference, not only in Annapolis, but making a difference in Baltimore.
Well, Senator Barbara A. Robinson, it has just been a privilege and an honor to sit here with you and to hear at the feet of a wise, wise woman. And we wish you well at Her Voice as you embark upon the continuation of your campaign, and we will see what is to come. But we believe that it's going to be good.
It's about people and progress, not politics and power. And it has been my pleasure to sit here with you. And it's been my pleasure to call you friend.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being my first guest. I'd have it no other way.
My pleasure.